Hello and welcome to another video, and I'm in Lanzarote. Obviously this is not my house, I don't live here. We come away on a family holiday, actually filmed like a little holiday vlog / swapping diets video yesterday. Very funny, it'll be going up next weekend. It's a bit convoluted. Basically I had one video that I already filmed in the UK with my dad. That's another funny one, by the way, which is gonna go up this weekend coming, so bear with me. This is just like an abstract video that's just kind of come up quite quickly, and I wanted to get it up straight away because it's topical and I think like it's important that you guys see this and are aware of this situation. Basically, I'm about to jump on a podcast with Derek from More Plates, More Dates. If you're unaware of who he is, I mean, you can look him up. He's a YouTuber, Instagrammer. He's like a frigging Yoda of the drug testing, like fake natty world. Like, he's extremely knowledgeable in terms of like taking drugs, in terms of testing drugs, etc. I basically, a bit of context, I made a video recently where I said with Mike that we were going to compete in a natural bodybuilding show. I guess naively in hindsight, I thought that would show that I was natural. Like, I thought if you compete in a natural show, you're natural. Apparently that isn't the case. Apparently people are saying that if you compete in a natural show, it shows you're maybe natural on the day, and that's it, and that isn't enough for me, right? The whole point of me doing it is that I want to show that not only am I natural now, but I've always been natural, right? I'm gonna prove that's the case, and everyone said that this Derek from More Plates, More Dates is the guy to go to, so we're gonna jump on a podcast. We're hopefully gonna orchestrate the most regimented testing protocol, whether it takes frigging 6 months, I don't care, I'm gonna do it to prove that I'm natural. I'm then gonna be owed thousands of apologies, notably from a couple of big people, which I'm so excited for that to be the case, to prove people wrong and people to say, do you know what, Matt, we're a friggin' bunch of little weasels, you were right the whole time. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, I'm excited. This is quite a big podcast, and I've done a few podcasts in the past, but this is like the first kind of like YouTube one I've done, so it's gonna be a long video. I apologize, but I don't think it's worth cutting down, you know. So let's get into it. We're about to jump on the call. If you are excited for this video, drop it a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you want to get a new training or diet plan and use the greatest fitness app on the planet, the Morsi app is the top link in the description, and you can use it for 7 days completely free, no strings attached. Go and get involved. But for now, let's jump on this mother friggin' podcast.
Recording in progress.
All right, so here we are. I don't know whose podcast this is necessarily. We're here with Mattdoesfitness.
So you record, do I need to record this Zoom? Like, is this?
No, I can send it to you right after. I have it going, so it's getting everything right now.
Okay, sick, right, yeah.
Okay, so obviously you mentioned in your video you wanted to be elaborately drug tested, thoroughly, as frequently as possible in order to prove your natural status, and you've been, one of the most heavily criticized people in the industry, for having a crazy physique that people don't believe could be achieved.
A massive fake natty, biggest fake natty in the world. Yeah, got to be up there, top 3. I'm saying at least.
Probably. So as far as proving it and whatnot, like you mentioned, how the bodybuilding thing, you wouldn't even enter the competition after all if they were not essentially agreeing to test you rigorously to a point that would prove the status, right?
Yeah, like, it's hard, right? So firstly, I don't want to look like I'm discrediting. Like, I don't want bodybuilders to be like, F this guy, he's like, belittling the sport of bodybuilding, right? So I'll be honest, and I've always said this, like, I don't really, like, I used to be a powerlifter. Competing as a powerlifter is mad. Like, it's so fun. It's super exciting. I loved it. For me personally, competing as a bodybuilder, that wouldn't be the same for me. I wouldn't, like, I guess it will be a nice objective endpoint, but in terms of the actual experience, for me, if I think about it, I'm not excited by that, right? Plus, like, I'm acutely aware of how horrendous it is to diet to the point you would need to diet, right? Like, I'm relatively lean now. That's nothing like getting like stage shredded, right? And I don't think I could even do that. And even if I could, it would just ruin my life. I've got like 2 kids, like, we're doing stuff that I don't want to just be a horrible person that, do you know what I mean? I don't think it isn't anywhere near enough. Like, what am I going to get out of that? It's no, like, oh, I look shredded for a few days. That's nowhere near. That doesn't justify the means anywhere near. So for me, by far my biggest motivation for saying, oh, I'll do a natural show was that, I guess, in hindsight, rather naively, I thought it would be like, oh, I've done a natural show, so now it's clear I'm natural, right? Obviously, it turns out from the fallout from that video, everyone's been saying it doesn't prove anything. All it proves is that you're natural on that day. And even that, they're saying, oh, maybe it wouldn't even prove that because the test wouldn't be rigorous enough. You could have been taking stuff and come off like a month or a few weeks or a week or whatever beforehand. So with that in mind, like, if I go and compete in a natural bodybuilding show and kill myself to do it, and then it doesn't change the fact that people think I'm not natural. Like, I've literally just wasted my time, and I had a detrimental effect on my life for no gain. So yeah, it still would be nice. It would be a cool series. I think people would enjoy watching me do that. Like, and I guess for me, it would be a nice goal to try and get super lean and do that. But if I'm not going to be tested, if I'm going to be tested once on a competition, and even that, I think some people say they only test the winner. So if I didn't win the show, like, I don't even get tested, it would literally be a complete waste of my life. So I don't know. Like, I'm now definitely leaning more towards, like, I just want to orchestrate some kind of testing, super rigorous testing protocol that can show as far as possible that not only am I natural now, but I've always been natural. That's my goal. That's by far my biggest goal now.
Okay, so yeah, that, I would be happy to tell it. Like, as far as blood work goes, I'm sure there are a lot of labs in the UK that you can just walk in, pay for your own lab work and get it done as frequently as you need to. Only thing is, like, that in itself is like, you'd be willing to go in and get blood drawn out of a vein once a week if you needed to. Like, you wouldn't care about that?
The other thing with that, so two things. Firstly, yeah, if it means like traveling, whatever, a 4-hour round trip once a week, like, that's going to be hard. Even if I was up for doing it, like, if we go away every 6 weeks or whatever, then how do I do it then? Then everyone says, oh, you didn't do it for 2 weeks. So that means you're probably taking drugs at that point. But also, even if I did that, like, I feel like, would people say, oh, that's not even your blood? Like, how would I even prove it's literally my blood, right? Like, how do I do that?
Well,
I can film it, but like, I don't know, like, is that even enough? Like,
I would be highly doubtful that an official, like, you'd have to put a lot of work into doing that, in terms of if you filmed yourself walking into the clinic, getting the blood drawn out of your physical arm, and then a lab is not allowed to doctor test results, obviously. So that would be you going out of your way to Photoshop your friends' like lab results, like, every single week for however many months. Like, I feel like there has to be a point where people are going to think, how far is this guy going to go to kind of manipulate things? And you have to give him, like, sort of more of a benefit of the doubt, the further you go with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
on that, right, on going to a lab, like, let's say I can find a lab. There'll be labs in London. There'll be numerous ones, right? Which is like, I can get to London in like an hour. So that's definitely possible. Like, I could do, for sure, minimum, I could do that once a month. I can make sure I'm there once a month to do that, right? Obviously, I know the more the better. Every week would be better, right? Like, what if, yeah? Because I know that there's companies, I've done them before for like testosterone checks and other health checks. They'll send you a thing, you take blood and you send it back. If I was to do, like, let's say I did one in a lab every whatever, and then in between that did ones where I send the blood, so I can do it from my home, so it's more convenient and it's more realistic. If you saw those, like, if you saw the results from those different samples, would you be able to say, oh, that's the same blood because it's got the same markers and whatever? Like, would you be able to prove it's not, or say reasonably that it isn't, I haven't just got someone else's blood?
Yeah, I think you would have to do like a lot of no jump cut videos of you like receiving the self at home lab test, you pricking your finger, you depositing the blood into the thing, you going to the mailbox and like physically putting it in there. And the lab can't use somebody else's name and information for like, your blood, obviously. So at that point, it's kind of like how much fuckery could be going on here in terms of somebody literally, as long as there's no jump cuts or like fancy edits, people can't really argue against it at that point, I would think. And as long as you get reasonable testing done, like, unfortunately, those self at home ones, you can only get very few things done.
Oh, so that wouldn't be enough.
You could get enough done, I would think, that you could get like a realistic breakdown of the likelihood is low that you're manipulating things at this point. Like, if you had you physically taking a video start to finish and mailing it, and then that lab, I'm sure these labs would confirm that the sample like belongs to you too, because like, yeah. I don't know about you, but I've talked to these, the self at home things. They go back and forth with you over email. I'm sure they would be happy to do like some promotion or something to like, do a confirmation of like, this is they're not going to lie to the fucking public about.
But like, do you think I don't know how many like metrics you get, but if I go to a legit lab and you see it there and you know that's my blood and you've seen the baseline, whatever, and then a week later I do one from home, if you saw those two results, would you better look at it and say, oh, that's Matt's blood, or you don't know that from those, that isn't enough to determine it's definitely my blood kind of thing?
Well, whatever company is facilitating the blood draw, it would be like it's not like I can look at a blood test and be like, that's definitely, I can see if it's like a guy or a girl based on what I'm looking at, but I can't tell it's like definitely yours without like genetic analysis done. But I don't think anyone's going to think that far into it. Like personally, if I saw you physically walk into a lab, get your blood drawn, get the results are correlated with the lab spits out a report that has your name on it and it's like official, and somebody could corroborate that at the company that provided it, like how much further could you have gone? Like paid off the lab guy or something? Like
thing is, you say that people, that's, do you know what I mean? That's that there will be people that would do that. Even mate, even this alone, even like if you just analyze like someone that's adamant I'm on drugs now, yeah. If you look at how many times I've spoken about it and done things about it, I'd have to be an absolute like fucking psychopath to be on drugs now. Do you know what I mean? Like to have weave the most bizarre, convoluted series of lies and like life events. It would be so. I would be an absolute serial killer to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean? So even that alone for me is just like obvious. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm aware that even whatever length I go to, some people are going to say stuff. But I would be happy like if you essentially, right, if you believe me, if you were like, do you know what, it's pretty clear that he's natural, that would be enough for me. I'd be happy with that, you know, because you're never gonna, obviously, I'm never gonna satisfy everyone. There's gonna be some creepy little weirdos that still say that, but
no, even when we did the Lex Little thing, and I believe he's natural, and I did a pretty, like I got my own clinic to test him because I have a HRT clinic and we facilitate blood draws all the time. We got him to film him going in, getting the blood taken out and all that stuff. And this was like overnight notice. It's not like he could have facilitated paying off the lab rep and, you know, trying to swap blood or whatever. And I broke down in my video why I think he's natural, and I interpreted the lab test results. And there's still people in the comment section that are like, oh, Derek helped them cheat the test or whatever. And it's like, you know, at that point, I think the majority of people are on the same page as me though, because I don't know anyone who knows how to interpret this shit properly anyway. So a lot of them are just deferring to me. So
that's to be honest, that's kind of like that's my like main reasoning. Like obviously you're very knowledgeable, but also in fact probably almost all of the people that are accusing me of being on drugs would probably be your audience, right? So I feel like you'd be
I don't know, maybe.
But do you know what I mean? Well, at the very least would be familiar with your content. So like you would be a good person to, this is what I was saying before, is that I've been speaking to some of the natural feds in the UK and they're saying, oh, we can facilitate a test, but like, I think if it's just some generic doctor that comes back and says, oh yeah, look, Matt's natural, I think people are gonna be dubious about that. Whereas if you say it, then people won't. People will believe that because you're obviously more, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? You're these people's friggin' idol, you know? Yeah.
So one thing is, so notably, the WNBF commented on that video I made about you and Thurston and kind of basically outlined how they're bulletproof and, you know, whatever. So they think they can do a pretty good job. I haven't dug into their actual parameters yet until we kind of nail down what we'd be doing here. But if they're willing to, like, this could be good promotion for them, obviously. If they're so this is like a no-brainer for them to rent. If they were willing to spend an extra, you know, $1,000 over the span of however, you know, multiple weeks of subsequent testing, even if we compensated them for it, like the ad revenue from the views itself would be able to pay them to do it. If you self-funded them to do it, it would be great promotion for them. It would pay for itself in the views, and it would just be like an overall great thing. So I can't imagine they wouldn't help facilitate randomly subjecting you to urine testing at least, I don't know, like once. I don't know how frequent. I'd have to, you know.
That's the thing. Like I've spoken to them and another fed, and the impression I got is that it wouldn't be that frequent. And like I want it to be frequent. And
that's under the impression that we're not paying for it. Like, what if we fund it?
Yeah. That's the other thing. I'm thinking there's a couple of companies that I've done stuff with in the past. Again, like blood stuff. Like it might be possible that they could send someone to my house. Like imagine if I could orchestrate that. Someone comes to my house every week or every 2 weeks and does it. That's a legit person. I can film that, and because they're coming to me, I can do it as, you know, every week. That's not a problem. I can do that. You know. That would,
that's what I'm thinking is we facilitate somehow compensating them accordingly. So
I pay for it. Like I said, I'm completely happy to pay for the whole thing. Like that's for me, that's completely worth it. You know, I'd be happy to do that. It's not a problem.
Yeah, and this is like That in itself, like facilitating the urine testing, I don't know how much they'd be willing to do blood, but even if they weren't able to do the stuff that I think needs to be added to their bulletproof testing to make it bulletproof, I'll see. I'm still working it out as far as my clinic working internationally. Right now, we're like, if you were domestic in the States, this would be a lot easier because I could just send you to a lab corp. I could just like send you a message and be like, you have 48 hours to go to a lab corp and like get a blood draw.
Can I send? This is weird. I can't send blood over there, right? Can I just send?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so anyway. I would have to double check, but I don't think so. But so I'm gonna see if there's some way I can coordinate facilitating like not like a drop ship, but it's like outsourcing it to a lab in the UK that then, gives the results, kicks it back to us in the States sort of thing. And then that way I can sort of mesh, as long as you pass the WNBF urine analysis. And I'm sure they do the full WADA, Anti-Doping Association, like standard, panel that they do for a lot of the associations, which is pretty. Most people are doing it thoroughly. Some of these natural bodybuilding shows are doing like really shitty versions of it. But the fact that they're like willing to go out of their way to comment on my stuff and be like, we're very confident in our procedures and whatnot, I'm assuming they're like somewhat familiar with what I've talked about, hopefully to a point that their urine analysis is comprehensive. So
yeah, like the guy I spoke to from the WMBF, he's been voice noting me on Instagram. I think he does the test himself. He's one of the testers. He's been doing it for like 6-7 years. So he was very confident in his like ability to do that and to make it legit. Like I said, I didn't get the impression it was going to be super thorough. Like I want it to be. Obviously, there's no point me doing one test every 3 months because that doesn't prove anything. But like you said, if I say, look, I'll pay for it, then maybe that would change it.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we can. I can't imagine we wouldn't be able to coordinate that. And then people are going to say, oh, like if you paying for it, how's it random? Then if you're paying for it, well, this would be organized in the agreements with the thing. It would be something where it's almost like, have you ever heard of VADA? And people like fund their own drug testing in like, sports in the States. Basically, it's like a federation that it's funded where you're then subject to extremely scrutinous testing for 8 to 16 weeks prior, like a boxing match or something. That it would sort of be like that, where you're funding like a specified block of time, and then I would be adding in my own blood work to then like corroborate their findings and have like a comprehensive breakdown of not only did you pass these, but then hopefully at the same time concurrently you would be doing YouTube videos where if you can maintain like a semblance of your performance metrics, it would be pretty much impossible to rule out that if you tried to come off of shit, but you somehow maintain your lifts or like, close to that for, 12 weeks or something, it would be pretty much impossible for people to say you're,
Yeah. That's exactly my plan, right? So what would be, again, this might be idealistic, but my plan is to have something, however long it would need to be, however long it would, if you stop taking drugs, right, the length of time it would take for that to leave your system and you to stop getting the benefits. So like, for example, with me, let's say I'm taking drugs now, right, I stop taking drugs, how long would it take for my physique to deteriorate and me to start looking like a piece of shit? How long would that be, do you think?
Well, the thing is off of the bat with the first test, we can tell even if you're trying to clear the drugs, I'd be able to tell just by looking at the result off the bat with your blood, because you would have suppression or your natural testosterone and everything would be shut down. Yeah. So we'd be able to tell if you were clearing it and how far it's been cleared. So let's just hypothetically say you've reached like baseline. You have no, like obviously your first test, I'm assuming, you're going to come out clean. At that point, we can assume everything.
Imagine I was just on a shit ton of drugs.
If something had cleared, it's cleared. At that point, you would start to see deterioration after like, your lifts are going to start to hit the shitter after like 4 weeks or so at least. Like if you give yourself a few months of this like heavily scrutinous testing, I don't think it would be possible for you to maintain everything that you have. So if you would be willing to subject yourself to it for like 10 to 12 weeks, I think that would be more than enough time for people to be like, okay, it's like pretty fucking improbable at this point that you would be able to maintain every single lift, your physique wouldn't change at all, blah, blah, blah.
So I would be happy to let's say like 6 months, right? If over the course of 6 months, like I'll look better, right? At the end of that period of time, I'll just put myself, I'll get in the madder shape. So let's hypothetically, right? Let's say I get tested, however we work it out over a period of 6 months. So let's say best case scenario is every week, worst case is every few weeks, right? Over the course of 6 months. And at the end of that 6 months, I'm in the best shape of my entire life. and all the tests are fine, if that's the case, then what would be your like conclusion from that?
If it was like truly randomized and it was like they were randomly urine testing you and we knew it was, you know, all legit and had cleared everything, we had kind of like determined we're fulfilling the guidelines for what we determined as random, checks for all the synthetic compounds you could be possibly using, blah, blah, blah. And then on the exact same time, you also go get the blood work that you need to get. And like, hopefully this is all coordinated like seamlessly and it's not too, you know, inconvenient for you. Then yeah, I would have like no problem being like, okay, it's like fucking impossible for him to have been using something at this point. So like, I would be happy to give a stamp of approval. Like with Lex, it was pretty easy for me to be like, okay, like I highly doubt he's been using something for at least this block of time prior. But for you, if you're doing this for 6 months, it'd be like, okay, like, fuck, he's probably never used anything ever. Because how would you have maintained, like hypothetically, if you reach like a peak physique plus like peak performance metrics, it would be pretty hard to say that whatever you had reached was the result of drugs, because if you're above a genetic baseline from drugs, there's no way you would not fall a little bit, you know? So it'd be pretty, you could like clear a significant amount of backlog of even your history. I can't imagine it wouldn't be easy to say you haven't used drugs like for years potentially. Like it kind of like, it would be very hard for somebody to justify, oh, he probably used drugs 5 years ago and that's why he's like this now. When you have all your strength is like the best it's ever been and your physique is like, you know, the best it's ever been. It's like, well, how the fuck is he maintaining that if any of this was supported by drugs in the past, you know?
Yeah. So. Well, that's my plan essentially. That's what I want to do. Like, because I can go and do it. I can go to a lab. I'm not in England now, but like when I get back home, I can go to a lab and do a drugs test, and it's going to show I'm natural now, right? But I want to show that's fine. I want to show I'm natural. I've always been natural, right? Or at least beyond reasonable doubt that I've always been natural. So that's why I figure if it's the longer I do that drug testing period for, the more abundantly clear it's going to become, right? That he still looks good. Or he's actually his physique's getting better. So it surely it would be impossible for me to have been taking drugs, come off drugs for 6 months and get a better physique. That's not possible, right? Unless I'm some kind of alien, right?
Yeah, and obviously it wouldn't reflect well on the testing federation if they somehow were manipulating stuff or whatever. Like it would be pretty, like, to be honest, I'd be able to tell through the blood work that I'm getting you to randomly get if like something was not matching or like if there was some fuckery going on. So I imagine this would be good promotion for them. It seems like a no-brainer if we're paying for it in some capacity. And then if I can somehow facilitate the blood work and it's also being paid for, then yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't work unless there was some severe limitation on your availability for stuff. Like I don't know how far you live from a draw place.
Yeah. So that's what I've got to figure out, because if we do the random stuff, I don't know how that works, because obviously I can't guarantee I'm going to be in my house for 6 months. In fact, I won't be. Obviously, I'm going to go and do stuff. I'm going to go away. So what I don't want to happen is me being in another country and then someone say, "Oh, you need to get drug tested tomorrow," and then I can't get drugs tested, and then people say, "Oh, you're on drugs now." So I need like a backup or something that I can do to. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, let me look at some of the like at home pricks, like the finger prick things, and see if I can get the biomarkers needed for like the blood portion. Yeah. I don't know what you do about the urine portion for being like if I don't know how far the WNBF is willing to go to drug test you. Like, I don't know if that's just like the UK or like if they, like, I'm assuming if you're in fucking Dubai or something, they're not going to parachute in and like take your urine, obviously. So yeah. I'm not really sure. We'll have to like figure it out, and probably it would be like anything like the UFC. You'd have to give some sort of guideline of this is what my trip plans are, and then we would plan around that for the randomized testing.
Yeah. But like so again, completely happy for the random stuff. That's better. I want it to look at like, you know, as I want it to be as obvious as possible. But if I'm getting it done super frequently anyway, does that negate the need for that? Because it's not like there must be a window whereby if I was doing it for example, every week or every 2 weeks, surely you can't be taking drugs, coming off, doing a test, that would be a ridiculous amount of work, and that's not even possible, is it?
But if it was like scheduled weekly, you could fuck around. But it's the fact that even if it was like bi-weekly, if it was random, it would be better than if it was weekly but scheduled. So if we had like, even if it was bi-weekly randomized, it would be a lot more impossible for you to like cheat than it would be if you had a scheduled test. Like every Sunday you're getting your urine and blood taken, you would obviously be able to get around that. But the fact
even every week, you can still do that. You could.
Yeah, if it was scheduled, you would be able to get around it for sure.
How though? What in the space of a week?
There's like shit that can clear your system in hours.
And you wouldn't be able to see that on like blood stuff.
If it was scheduled and you were, if we were only taking stuff every like Sunday, for example, you could have the stuff out of your system by like Tuesday and be like back on your shit until like Friday or Saturday, and then get off and be ready to go for your Sunday test.
Okay.
But
okay, I mean the random stuff.
Random though, and then it doesn't matter at that point.
If I can do it in a way, so let's say I can get someone to come to my house. This, like I said, this might be optimistic, but if I can get someone to come to my house and do it, I would be happy to do it random for 6 months, like every whatever. Do you know what I mean? Every week, every 2 weeks. If it's done in a way, there's no point in me doing it if it's not going to be sustainable. If it's done in a way that I know I'm going to be there and I know I'm going to be around, i.e. someone comes to my house, or some way of me doing it that doesn't involve like a 4-hour round trip, then I can do it random, absolutely fine. The more stringent, like if you say, fulfill these 10 criteria and it's concrete, then I'll do that. That's what I want to do. There's no point me doing it. It's a waste of time if it's still a bit like vague, then it's a waste of my time, right?
No, absolutely, yeah. And like obviously there has to be like some reason in terms of lenience if they like show up to your house and you're like not home or you're like out and doing something. Like obviously people, if it's random, they can't just claim you were skirting around it because it's not like you would have known they were showing up. So just like in the UFC, you have a certain amount of it's like you have like a whereabouts log where you're supposed to tell them where you're going, and then from there they show up to whenever they want kind of thing. And you have a certain amount of like get out of jail free things based on if there's like crazy circumstances, like whatever it happens to be. But in general, it would be planned around like we know where you're going to be at all times, so they'd show up whenever the fuck they want, and you should ideally never encounter a situation where it's like impossible to take a piss. So
how long? So if with that, like again, I'm just trying to factor in. I want to make it like as watertight as possible. So if someone's like, right, we're coming to your house in an hour to randomly test you, you can't get around that, right?
Probably not, no, but I don't think they would give you warning. Like ideally I would just like I guess, yeah, if there was like an hour, yeah, you wouldn't have time to really do anything realistically. So I think that would be reasonable. Ideally I would have whoever shows up literally like vlog it when they show up too, so they have they know you can't fuck around on your end with like whatever.
Just quickly run out the back door. Like again, like completely random anytime over a long period of time is fine. What I just don't want to happen is that, like I said, I'm not here. I've gone somewhere else, and then they turn up, and then it makes me look bad. Obviously, I don't want to like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm not going to be in my house for 6 months. You know what I mean? That's obviously not going to happen. So like, I don't know how they work around that. But like, if we had like a backup, so every so often, if I'm away or I'm doing something, there's something I can do that just like maintains I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the UFC has their whereabouts thing where they submit a log of where they're going to be. I think if you could facilitate, I don't know if we could implement using like the same app that they use, but if we could do that, that would circumvent like all of it and be super easy to facilitate. So they don't show up when they don't show up at like the wrong time or whatever. And when I say wrong time, I mean like a time that they wouldn't be able to facilitate a test. But if you were going to be in some like totally different continent or some shit, then I would, I'll look at some of the like at-home tests and see how good we can get those. Yeah. But I
mean, like, so my elder son.
Your vacation schedule, I'm assuming, like ahead of time.
So yeah. I mean, to be honest, we're pretty like whimsical. But with that said, like my elder son is starting school in September, so we're going to be way more like restricted at that point, right? So we won't be going away super all the time. And to be honest, like when we do go away, it's probably going to be in the school holiday. So we're going to know, generally speaking, these are times when I'm definitely going to be around. These are times when maybe I won't be around. So like we'll have a clear idea, like in a few weeks, basically.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, and it's not like it needs to be honest, I don't think 6 months would be like if you want to make it super airtight, but I mean like
that's what I want to. I do want to. Like otherwise, it's a waste of my time, right? I want like I'm just excited. I'm like Obviously, I know I'm natural, right? And I know I always have been. So I'm very, very excited when that comes out, just for people to Like I said, I did an Instagram post and I just said like, I'm looking forward to receiving just an abundance of apologies, basically.
Yeah, I think the skepticism is more around like your physique progression after you were already like a high tier athlete who was presumably like 20 to 30 pounds lighter than you are now.
That's what I was gonna ask you, right? Like, out of interest, because again, you're one of the people that have accused me of being on drugs. What is your main reasoning? What's your justification for having said that or believing that?
Well, I've never done like a dedicated video on you, I don't think, ever. But if I was to just like at a glance, like I've seen Doucette's kind of dissection of your history and whatnot. Like obviously I would have to dig into it before I could give like an explanation here, because I've never done a video specifically on you where I dug into like, oh, this is where his bench press was this, and this is how much he weighed here, and then 2 years later, like blah blah blah. But in general, from what I saw, your like performance metrics and whatnot have been getting better. Your physique has been getting exponentially better, despite the fact that you were like a peak performance athlete, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago or something like that. These might be like way off the mark, by the way. Like, I'm not super familiar with your entire history. I've just seen like random videos here and there, but it's kind of like the jump that you've taken from like peak athleticism, elite performance guy to all of a sudden, even now that you're not in competitive powerlifting or anything, but you're like way fucking bigger and way like everything seems superior to when you were already like a veteran of the gym sort of thing.
So on that, right? So I used to do track and field. I was like a triple jumper, like a long and triple jumper, right? So I wasn't skinny, but compared to me now, I was like way smaller, right? Because obviously a triple jumper, you need to be skinny as like any weight you're carrying, any upper body weight, any tissue is it's just making you jump not as far, right? So like it makes sense to be slim. So that was like up until like 8 or 9 years ago. So that was like, at that point, I did a little bit of gym work, but it was like Olympic lifts. Like I'd never done any like concerted effort to get stronger. It was all like explosive fast stuff with light weights, like moving loads fast. Then I got injured and I started doing kind of bodybuilding / powerlifting. At that point, that was the first time in my life, which is, so again, that's like pretty much the start of my YouTube channel. So you can see the whole progression. So it's kind of 7 or 8 years ago maybe, where I started trying to get bigger and trying to get stronger for the first time. And then from that point, I had a couple of years of just mad getting bigger, getting stronger, because I'd gone from 5 years of just eating, literally starving myself and doing zero hypertrophy training, to then doing an absolute shit ton of hypertrophy training and eating as much food as I could physically stomach for like 2 years. So obviously you're going to get way bigger and way stronger. It would be ridiculous if we didn't, you know what I mean? So for me, that isn't any evidence at all. That's just a logical series of events. Like obviously if you eat loads of food and you train loads off the back of not training, you're obviously going to get bigger. That's just a logical result of doing something. The reason, I mean, the Greg Doucette one, the thing he said, which is what, and then everyone's subsequently saying the same thing. I did a video like 5 years ago, which was when my videos were absolute dog shit. I had no idea. I was editing on like Windows Movie Maker, and I said, I think in the space of a year, from stopping triple jumping to starting like bodybuilding, I gained like 40 pounds. And the first thing is, he interpreted that, he said, oh, I gained 40 pounds of muscle. I didn't, I gained 40 pounds. Now, firstly, that was probably a little bit of an exaggeration. Maybe it was like 35, 40 pounds, but even then, going from never bodybuilding, right? Like not doing any bodybuilding at all, to bodybuilding 6 days a week, coupled with going from literally starving myself, being in the most depleted state, to then eating as much as I could physically stomach for like a year, 2 years, right? Gaining 40 pounds in a year, I feel like you could do more than that. Like I could go and gain 15 pounds in a week right now if I went and ate a ton of food. Like I don't think that's that surprising. Gaining 40 pounds of muscle, obviously you can't, that's ridiculous, but I didn't do that. I said 40 pounds of weight. There's a massive difference between 40 pounds of weight and 40 pounds of muscle, right? That's a pretty enormous difference. You see bodybuilders, rebound off a show and gain 40 pounds in a few days. Like it's a big difference between just putting on a ton of water weight, a bit of fat, a bit of muscle, versus just pure muscle. Obviously that's not possible, and I've never claimed to have done that. That's the main thing I think that people will use, but like I said, that's been completely misinterpreted, which essentially blows that entire argument out of the water.
I think it's also because your body fat has remained like low the entire time you've been stuffing your face, which is like, to gain, most people during their first year and they stuff their face, like they gain a lot of weight, but it's like they end up with like abs totally glazed over, they get fat as fuck, whatever. They look like a traditional guy representative of a dirty bulk, but for you it's like you just gain what a lot of it is definitely like temporary, like water and whatnot from just like eating more food and stuff. But the gains have always seemed to be like extremely lean and dry-ish for you. Yeah,
I think that's also is a little bit misleading. Like I think there was times when even like, I think Greg said he estimated I was like, something she was like 7-8% body fat. Like I literally went and did a couple of DEXAs and I was like, I think 14-15%. Like an Instagram picture, everyone's basing this on an Instagram picture. Obviously an Instagram picture, it goes without saying, it's very misleading. I'm not going to get myself looking fat. I'm going to get myself like with a pump, with sick lighting. Like I've even done a video where it's like me, in the gym versus 5 minutes later, and I look like I've done 10 years of training in between. It's so easy to make yourself look sick just from getting a nice angle and getting a pump. And like, that's one thing. Also, I carry almost no body fat on my abs. So I can be, even recently, I did a DEXA like 6 weeks ago, and I was like, I think I was almost 17% body fat, but I've still got very visible abs, right? So like, one guy could be the same body fat and look fat, right? Like it's 17% body fat is not lean, that's not shredded by any stretch of the imagination. But I could take an Instagram picture at that point and people say, oh look, this guy's shredded. I'm not shredded, I have no fat on my abs. People use abs essentially as a barometer. If someone says you're shredded, what they mean is you've got a really visible six pack essentially. And obviously if I carry fat on my lower back, like my thighs, my bum, like it's not really visible in an Instagram photo, you know what I mean? So I haven't, it's misleading. People say, oh yeah, you're shredded all year round. I'm not, I've never been shredded in my life. The leanest I've ever been when I was triple jumping probably got to like maybe 10%. But like for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I would have never dipped below maybe 12% at a push. I would never been below that. And I mean, that's what I would like to do at some point, because I think then I'd be shredded, but I don't know.
The fact that you just said you've never been shredded is like, everyone watching is gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But again, if you see me, this is again, so I did a video like a month or two ago with a guy called Josh Bridgman, who he's recently got his pro card, he's an IFBB pro, right? At the time, but this is before I started this cut, so we were both around 100 kilograms in body weight, right? He made me look like a skinny little girl. Like I was quite confident before that session, right? And at the end of the session, I literally went home and was like, why am I even bothering? He had so much more muscle mass than me, it was embarrassing. Like I looked, my shoulders, my upper chest, it was honestly, I felt so like a piece of right? Now, if you look at him a few years ago, like I definitely have above average genetics. I think I have very good genetics to build muscle, and in terms of symmetry, and I think I'm lucky in that sense. I can look pretty decent, right? If you look at him, say 5 years ago, I'd say if anything, my genetics are probably better than his, right? So in that case, how can I be taking drugs and then train with a guy who also takes drugs and he looks so much better than me at the same body weight? I don't see how it's possible. Do you know what I mean? I think that in itself, I think I made it like 6 weeks, maybe 2 months ago. Yeah, that in itself for me is just overwhelmingly clear that I'm not on drugs, because how would that be? Unless I'm on, I'd be on the drugs, you know what I mean, that don't work for that.
Or you're just on TRT and he's on blasting hella shit because he's trying to be IFBB pro.
Yeah, but I still think, like, again, this is the annoying thing, right? Like, I'm never gonna do it, but part of me is like, if I just did whatever the best drugs are for like 6 months, yeah, I'd be a monster. I'd be the biggest, strongest man on the planet, mate. That's what almost annoys me the most, is that like, part of me is like, do you know what? I'm just gonna go fucking take loads of drugs and be like, that's what I look like on drugs. Do you know what I mean? But obviously I'm not gonna do that, so it's not an option. But yeah.
Well, you never know. Sometimes the best looking guys naturally respond shitty to drugs and they end up like not that much better.
That would be ironic, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, like obviously this thing I think will seal the deal if we can coordinate it.
That's it. Ultimately, all of these things are just like largely subjective. I want to have something that is just conclusive, or at least beyond reasonable doubt. Like, that would be ideal. That's what I want to have, and then it would just be like.
And what did you weigh during your triple jumping days?
My lightest right towards the end. So in the last like 6 months, I got down to like 80 kilograms. Let me calculate this. So in pounds, that would be. So my lightest I got down to like 176, which I sustained for like a few months. And then,
starving yourself is one.
I'm not joking. I reckon, so I would compete every weekend, right? Monday to Friday. There were times when I'd eat like soup for my meals. I reckon there were times when I was eating like sub 1,000 calories a day. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Like I had no understanding of like nutrition. Like I wasn't even taking protein at that point. I didn't know what, I thought it was like bro science. So I literally was probably consuming 30 grams of protein a day at most. I was eating absolutely nothing. I was literally starving myself. Then I'd go and compete and I'd fucking binge for like 2 days, eat like 400 donuts and stuff for like a day or two. Then I'd go back and just completely kill myself again for a week. And I did that cycle for a whole year. Like, again, I had no idea what I was doing, but that's what I did for like, so by the end, I was just gaunt. I was proper like, ironically, I was still bigger than other triple jumpers because those guys are like skinny as but compared to me now, I was significantly smaller. So I went from a hyper depleted state doing, for the last year, I wanted to be, I wanted to compete in the Olympics, right? So I wanted to get super skinny, so I just cut out any semblance of hypertrophy. So I did zero bodybuilding training for at least a year, maybe longer, coupled with completely depleting myself for the entire summer. I then literally got injured and overnight was like, right, that's it, I'm gonna go mad. So I went bodybuilding 6 days a week, eating, just you can watch my video, that's when I was doing all the food challenges. I was doing like 20,000, 25,000 calorie food challenges. I was literally consuming, short of being on like an intravenous drip, as many calories as I could physically stomach. I did that for so long. So, I feel like I could gain more than 40 pounds in a year with that in mind. I don't think it's even that much of a, surprising gain. Like, it would have been a shit ton of water, a bit of fat, obviously a good amount of muscle mass, but like, yeah, I don't think, for me, that isn't surprising at all. Like, I think I see people do that all the time, gain more and lose more than that in far shorter periods than a year.
So when you were triple jumping, like that was obviously multiple years that you dedicated yourself
to. Yeah,
like
9. I did it seriously. I was like, I considered myself a triple jumper. Like, I was doing it as, there's no money in that sport. So unless you're like the top 10 in the world, which I wasn't, like, to be honest, I wasn't, in hindsight, I was like, at best, I think I was like ranked 3rd in the UK. I was still a long way off qualifying for the Olympics, but I'm a very optimistic guy, so I was like, fuck it, in my head I was like, I'm gonna try and qualify for the Olympics. I didn't really even get close, but that was my plan.
So during those 9 years, you never tried to thought of like the ratio of, if I eat at maintenance and maybe I gain a bit of weight, but my performance is better from the fuel versus
Mate,
like
my understanding back then, like I didn't even know what maintenance was. Like, honestly, I like my
eating more to be like, I'll have the energy to jump further versus even if I weigh a bit more.
Yeah, true. So obviously if I was doing that now, like I kind of wish I had my mindset back then.
I think people would be skeptical that you depleted for 9 years.
No. That was only the last, like for the first, it was only the last 5 years where I was like at a really good level, like a national level, and then it was the last probably year, maybe, because in track and field you do like a whole winter where you just do a shit ton of training volume, then you kind of, you taper, you get really sharp, and then you come out for the summer. So probably the last 1.5 cycles of that, so maybe a year and a half, maybe 18 months, that I was like, right, do you know what, I've got to get a light now. So then I made a concerted effort and probably dropped, from where I'd been hovering, probably dropped another 10 pounds, then just kind of maintained that throughout the summer, but just gradually probably got more and more.
Like you would deplete down to like 170 pounds or whatever it was. I think you said like 80 something kilos.
I think it was like I think my very lightest. So the last competition I did that was like I did like an international, it was my first ever international competition, and I was like, this is it, I'm gonna go. In my brain, I correlated being skinny as with being a good triple jumper. So I was just like, I'm literally gonna starve myself. Like I would go to bed like with pain in my stomach. I had like dreams about Krispy Kreme donuts. Like it was pretty horrendous. But at that point, I got down to like, I think it was like pretty much bang on 80 kilos, so 76.5 pounds or something.
Right. So like your normal walking around weight prior to that was 10 pounds heavier. So you were like close to 190, just like.
Let me calculate it. One sec. I mean, straight away, like when so I would binge, I would compete, and then I would binge for like, it started out being like, oh, I'll go out after my competition and have a cheat meal. That turned into like a cheat weekend where I'd probably do a 10,000 calorie challenge on Saturday and Sunday, where I was just literally getting as much food as I could, because my body was like, I need food, and my brain was just obviously messed up. So even as a result of that, probably would jump up like, I reckon probably 10 pounds over those 2 days I'd put on, just from, going from being hyper depleted to then having a ton of food in my system. So like,
no, right. But I mean, like, so you would deplete for the actual competitions, but I mean, like the rest of the year when you're like off season or whatever, when you're not depleting, you'd walk around.
Let me work out in pounds. I reckon maybe like 10 to 15 pounds heavier. Like if I for the rest of the time, maybe the points, because I would the summer season would last like, I don't know, you'd be competing for like 3-4 months. So for that time, I'd gradually get more and more, you know, depleted and gaunt and skinny. But leading up, and you can see pictures and videos of me. I say skinny, I'm not skinny, but compared to like YouTuber bodybuilder standards, I am pretty skinny at that point, right? Leading up to that, it's a long time ago, but maybe I was like 10, 15 pounds heavier, you know, before I was like, right, that's it. So I do my winter training, maybe 10, 15 pounds heavier, and then over the course of the summer, probably, through that kind of starvation and doing no bodybuilding, probably drop like 10 to 15 pounds. And like I said, that peak at like 176-ish was when I was like off the back of having done that for however many successive weeks.
Right. So yeah, I'm just trying to like lay framework for people. Like obviously these tests will show everything, but I'm just like, people, you can understand the skepticism where you're a guy who doesn't even train in the gym and you're like a lean looking 190 walking around normally, not even doing hypertrophy work, like fucking at all.
But as well, bear in mind though, I say no, I wasn't doing arm curls and like pec flies, but obviously as a triple jumper, I'm in the gym. I was in the gym like, you know, 3 days a week doing like, you know, plyometrics, like squat jumps, all kind, you know, predominantly lower body work, all explosive stuff, Olympic lifts, but there's still going to be some hypertrophy stimulus from that, right? It's going to be a little bit. You still, you know, Ollie lifters are still monsters, right? So you're still going to get some hypertrophy stimulus, but obviously when I started bodybuilding, it was 100% full on hypertrophy. Also prior to that, so in my kind of formative track and field days, I was constantly fighting a battle between when I was a kid at school, I had like, again, good genetics. I was muscular, but I was still quite slim, right? So I wanted to be, as most teenage boys want to, they want to be massive jacked guys, right? So I wanted to be massive. So I remember when I was like 16, my uncle gave me some like dumbbells and I was just doing a ton of arm curls in my bedroom, right? Like an absolute weirdo. But I did that I did kind of what I thought was a bit of bodybuilding for a few years, and then it wasn't until I was like, do you know what, I've got to start taking athletics seriously now, that I completely sacked that off. So I was still doing, in my early, basically, if you look at pictures of me when I first started track and field, I was bigger than I was towards the end when I started taking it more seriously and realized that carrying upper body mass was just holding me back, you know. But obviously I went about it in the complete wrong way. But you can see pictures of me as a kid, like I obviously had very good genetics. You know, I was always the fastest kid, I was always the strongest kid. So it's, I just think, I don't know. For me, it's frustrating because for me, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm natural. But obviously someone that doesn't know me or doesn't watch my content or hasn't seen what I've done previously, I can understand how maybe they'd have suspicions.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'll like set up, do like a group 3-way DM with the WNBF or any of these other federations and see if they're down for the structure we propose, because it seems kind of like a no-brainer business decision. It's not like it's just a novelty thing for your channel. It's like actually good promotion for them, obviously, if they're like the premier league who has like bulletproof testing. So that's what my thinking was. Like, if you put yourself in my shoes, right, what would you do? Do you know what I mean? What would you do to, and like some people say, I just don't worry about it, see it as a compliment, but like, that's fine at first. At first I was like, oh yeah, it is. You know, you're saying I look so good, like that I must be taking drugs. That is a compliment, right? But also actually, like, if you analyze it, that's a pretty horrendous accusation. If you analyze like what kind of a person that would make me to have been lying this entire time, I'd be a piece of shit, right? So that is actually a pretty horrible accusation. So yeah, I've gone from being like, do you know what, I don't care. Like at times I even found it funny. Now it's like, do you know what, I actually would like to do something about it, because it's like, like when you do the comparisons of physiques too, like it gets really like, there's a lot of times you'll say stuff like, oh, it's so obvious when you compare me to like Josh Bridgham or whatever, but there's guys like Andre Dieu who have like the peak fucking pinnacle genetics as per any standards of people in this industry, but he only steps on stage at like 190 or some shit, and I'm pretty sure he's like close to the same height as you or something like that. But it's like, so it's not just about like weight, you know, it's about like
but I think for me to get to I don't know, but like how, like when he competes, what would he be like? 5%? Like how? Do you know what I mean? What percent body fat would he be like? Mega low, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't think anyone would argue that you're striking distance of like stage ready within like 10 to 15 pounds, anyways, a lot of the time.
I think if you saw me in real life, I think you would change your opinion. I think you're judging it off like seeing me from front on, generally waist up, in a really really flattering Instagram picture. If you see me walking around, like, yeah, I did a DEXA like 6 weeks ago, and I was like, I think I was 16.9% body fat. And even let's say that's, yeah, they can be a few points high. So even if I'm like 14% body fat, that's a long way off stage ready, right? Like I have to drop a lot of weight to get that lean. So like,
yeah, I think the DEXAs, everyone's gonna be like, the DEXA doesn't mean shit, but I mean,
but I also, the first one I did, when I did a DEXA, I also at the same time, I got calipers done, and I got the, what's that one, the weird thing you sit in, it's like a bod pod or something. I did 3 around the same time, and they were all within like 1% of each other, so it's not that far off, you know? But even so, like I said, it's what doesn't work in my favor is that I look, my physique, I'm very fortunate in that where I deposit body fat gives me the illusion of being significantly leaner than I am. You know, like I even did an Instagram post the other day because when I've started this cut, I went from like 99 kilos down to like just under 94. So I dropped like, what is that? 12 pounds, whatever. But my physique looked almost identical. Like you couldn't see, I looked a little bit leaner, a little bit sharper, but like particularly like around my kind of torso didn't look much different. And that's because I think the first place I would lose fat is like lower back, maybe glutes, maybe like thighs, which you don't even really see in a picture. Do you know what I mean?
I think the first like 10 pounds, a lot of that is just like water weight anyways. Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I mean, you have to actually eat like 2,500 calories to lose weight. Like it seems really low considering how much you get away with eating.
Yeah. So when back in the day, going back a couple of years ago, when I was like I've toyed with powerlifting twice. I've had 2 stints. One where I did it for a few years where I competed, then I got sick of it and went back to bodybuilding for like a year. And then recently with lockdown, I had nothing to do, so I just built a gym and started powerlifting again. I had about a year of doing that, got strong as f***. Every time I powerlift, I'll just eat a ton of food because for me, like, I know you could maintain body weight and your strength to power ratio gets better, but that's boring. I want to see my numbers going up, and I know that if I eat a ton of food, my numbers go up. So that's what I'm going to do. But for me, it's not sustainable because I got to a point in the past where I'm like pouring olive oil in my protein shakes to get enough so I can just drink calories because I can't stomach any more food. So there's been times.
What calorie intake is that at? Where you're like pouring?
There's been times like going back to when I was competing as a powerlifter in the IPF. And I've been drug tested as well in the IPF as a powerlifter. Yeah. There was a point when I was competing in the 105 kilo class, which is like, I don't know what that is, 220 or something. And that was, for me, I was obviously trying to get as close to that limit as I could. And I was eating so much food. And I reckon towards the end of that point, I was eating over 5,000 calories a day and not gaining very much weight. But then
skeptical when I hear people say I was eating so much because, like, for example, do you know who James English is?
Yeah.
So he thought he was eating. He has sort of like a similar like body composition to you, where he's like, even when he bulks, he does not really get like visibly fat.
I reckon he has, but he has like dream ratios, right? In terms of powerlifting, he's got fucking short legs, short arms. Like he's an absolute. I feel like he's built to be strong as fuck, right?
What I'm saying is he always thought he was eating a lot of food and his appetite is just bad. And it turns out after he actually calculated everything, he was eating like 2,600 calories or something on his.
To be fair, like I think I would have tracked it for a video here and there, but like, yeah, I mean, that's my estimation. Like, okay, maybe it was lower, but like a shit ton of food by the average person's standards, right? Yeah. But I reckon my metabolism is very adaptive because what I find is like, I can eat a shit ton of food for like a sustained period of time, and obviously I'll gain weight, but then fairly soon it kind of levels out, right? And conversely, when I cut, I haven't cut very often, but on the odd occasion when I have done that, I'll lose weight pretty easily and quickly at first, then it will level out. Now, part of that's probably in the past for me, like a lack of understanding on my part and not doing things in the right way. Like this cut, I found it so easy because I've just been eating a shit ton of protein and eating really massy, like voluminous foods, and it's been pretty easy up to this point. But still, I know that if I was going to compete and I wanted to get really lean to like, proper stage levels, like, yeah, I think I'd have to eat a pretty small amount of food, which would suck. But Yeah, probably, to be fair, maybe I have exaggerated in the past my metabolism, or not deliberately, but just the thought I've eaten more than I have, potentially. But yeah, I definitely do naturally have, I think, a way above average metabolism. Like all my family, like I've got an older sister who, she eats more than me. She's an absolute monster, but she's a tiny little skinny, like, you know, she's muscular, but she's very small. So like, we have this more sickening metabolism where we can just eat a ton of food. Like my brother, I have a younger brother, same thing. He's got disgusting genetics. He eats, again, he was doing the same thing as me. He's putting, you know, there's little Actimel, there's little mini, you can get those little kind of Actimel things, little like, what they call, weird little yogurt drinks you buy, right? That old people drink. Right. Get those right, he'd peel the lid off and there's a little gap and he'd just pour olive oil to fill it up, shake it and just neck it. It's like a 400, 500 calorie thing with the olive oil. He was doing the same as me, just desperately trying to get calories into bulk. So we all inherently have a very fast metabolism, which again, as you say there, people think, oh, how can you eat that much food and be lean? Like, firstly, like I have a fast metabolism. Secondly, I'm not as lean as you think I am. Like, let's just say, you know, there's been times where, like I said, I've been even 15% body fat. People would say I've been, at that point, they'd be like, oh, you're shredded. You could find someone else that walks around at 15% body fat and they haven't even got abs at all, right? You wouldn't describe them as shredded, but we have the same amount of body fat. So I think just disregarding the person and looking at a body fat number it can be unbelievably misleading because it depends where you put that body fat, right? If you don't put it on your abs, then you look 10% leaner than someone else, even though you're actually the same percentile.
So before you started training, what was your actual like baseline stats? Like you were...
I wish, like, bear in mind, I'm like 35, right? So bear in mind, like when I started, like when I was doing track and field, like I didn't give a shit about I wish I'd taken some photos and knew what I was. I've got a couple of terrible selfies of me in a toilet, but like I didn't even know how to pose. Like that's another thing, right? Like just learning, like when I learned how to contract my abs, you look like you're fucking 5% leaner, just the skill of, I didn't even know how to do that. I used to like think it, like when I first started doing it, I'd just be like pushing my stomach out. I didn't know how to contract my abs, but so I haven't got much footage or video or, you know, images from back then, but there's pictures of me like, you know, at school with my friends and when I'm kind of like, you know, university, 18, 19, 20, like I'm clearly very muscular, like compared to the average person, right? Not by like YouTube bodybuilder standards, but like for the average person, people would describe me as being a big guy and a muscular guy. Like I used to like doing, again, as like a teenager and in my early 20s, I used to love like wanting to be massive, like, you know, be a big, like muscular guy. I would have been, I don't know, I reckon when I was at university, I got a job at a gym. I reckon at that point, I probably would have been like, probably not that much lighter than I am now. Like I probably would have been maybe 90 kilograms. So like, what's that in pounds? Probably close to 200, maybe like 190s, 200 pounds, I reckon. And that was like, yeah, that was just me, you know, going to the gym pretty, you know, semi-seriously, like wanting to be big, but not actually doing like athletics kind of half-heartedly. It wasn't until I started, I was like, do you know what, I want to do this as my career, that I realized I needed to get like, just drop a ton of muscle mass. So yeah, there's been times when I've been bigger and heavier before I then did track and field and got, but that again is quite misleading because people would just see me as a skinny triple jumper and think, oh, I've just blown up. But prior to that, I was also bigger and stronger. I just conditioned my body to be skinny as because I thought that was a good thing to do, you know?
So what was your main motivation to not take drugs then? Like just you felt your physique was good enough anyways? You had no motivation to really push the envelope?
What do you mean, track and field or just in life? Like,
no, just like after, like once you got into YouTube, fitness industry, stuff like that. Like obviously,
I mean, to be honest, to be honest, like the thought of taking drugs, it wasn't like I was sitting down weighing it up. I didn't even occur to me. I didn't think, I wasn't like, oh, should I take drugs? The thought never really occurred to me. Like, again, in track and field, to be honest, track and field, because that's what another argument, people say, oh yeah, you did track and field at a high level, so you've got to be on drugs. Like, firstly, I was nowhere near high enough level to be at the point where people, you know, people are taking drugs because I was well off like Olympic standard, even though my brain.
I think you'd be surprised, bro. I think you'd be surprised. There's people in like high school football that take drugs.
Yeah. But in the UK, like I don't think it's this. In the UK, like bear in mind, I'm receiving no money. Like you know, my club were paying for my kit and some hotels, but I was literally, you know, working a full-time job trying to fund that track and field. So I don't know whether I'd be finding money to take drugs, you know, for a start. But basically, there was no point. I wasn't good enough. Like you've still got to have basically it wouldn't have justified doing that, right? But then when I got into bodybuilding, like, to be honest, like I thought I looked sick. I didn't think, it wasn't like, I think the motivation for most people taking drugs is because they think they look like and they want to get bigger. Like I thought I looked awesome. Like I was like, I didn't really ever think about it. But if someone had presented me with the opportunity to do it, I would have said no because why? Like, do you know what I mean? I was getting bigger, I was getting stronger. Like, I think for me now, like, because this will be another interesting with the drugs things. Like I did with the test. I did like, I don't know how accurate they are, but I did a couple of those at home like blood tests. I did another one maybe a year or two later, like a couple of years ago, and my testosterone was like, you have like a, like the range, there's like on the results they gave me, like you go on like a browser and it has all these like metrics and whatever, and then there was like a normal range, and I was towards the low, I was still in the normal range, but I was towards the lower end of the normal range. And the first time I did it, I was like, what the f***, because I thought I was gonna have like, obviously I assume that testosterone is the biggest barometer of like muscle building capability, so I assumed I'd be high. Like, I don't know how accurate this is. When I looked into it, people were saying like, as long as you're in the normal range, that doesn't make much of a difference. If you were obviously mega low versus mega high, that makes a massive difference. But low normal versus high normal, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I don't know. But anyway, point being, like, yeah, I was surprised that my levels, I thought my levels would be high just because I'm a muscular guy. I've got good genetics, so I assume that would be the case. But that'll be interesting when we do these like series of tests to see like where that is, because again, I was surprised. I think everyone assumes that if you're a big guy, you've got a load of testosterone, but obviously that isn't the case.
No, yeah, it matters more. It's like androgen receptor content in the muscle versus like your actual test level is largely going to dictate your response. But also like time of day is a massive influence on your test level. Like if you did just,
I think I did. I remember they said that. I think I did them in the morning because I think they said your test is higher in the morning. So I'm pretty sure I did that. I don't know for 100%. I mean, my facial hair, right? I think this is like a good sign of like of shit test, but like I have the beard growing capabilities of a 12-year-old boy. Like I know. I used to be a teacher at school, right? And there were kids like in year 10, like 15-year-old boys that had way better facial hair than me. Like I have no, like my body hair / facial hair growing capabilities are, I'm jealous of your stubble growth right now. Like, that is unattainable for me. So I don't know if that's that linked with test, like low test? Beard,
no, it's like you'd get a bit more if you were had a higher test, but it wouldn't be like substantial where you go from like no beard to like full beard necessarily. It's more genetic.
That would be a big motivation for me. If I could grow a massive beard, that's it. I'll just jump straight on it.
Well, if you wanted, you could do. Have you ever heard of minoxidil and microneedling before? No. Okay. If you can literally go from no beard to a full beard within 6 months if you use something called minoxidil. Typically, people use it on their hair for hair loss, but if you put it on your face, you can grow a beard from fucking nothing.
That would be quite funny. I don't think I want a beard that bad, but that would be quite funny just to do for a laugh. But no, I think like that's quite a lot of effort.
So you're still natural if you take it. So.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say, right? I think because like again, there's so many like my knowledge is poor in this field, but like people just say steroids, like you're taking steroids, you're not taking steroids. That's what everyone thinks is being like natural. I'm aware there's obviously more things than that, right? If we do all these tests and my testosterone is like I think is slightly in the low side of normal, like because obviously as you get older, I'm getting to the point. I'm 35, but like, and I think I've got sick genetics. But there'll come a time when that obviously would impact my ability to build muscle and look good, right? So I definitely wouldn't be against like you can get prescribed testosterone for like if you have low test, right? So like that may be something I would do in the future, just to not to be a monster, but just to at least get to like a level that I should be at, because like that will be interesting. If I am slightly low and I take testosterone to get me to where I should be, I'd be intrigued to see if that actually made me look like better, like because if it does, that'd be pretty sick. Like again, almost certainly never gonna do it, but part of me is like, if I didn't have a family and I was just like knocking about by myself, I would be so tempted just to fucking jump on a mad cycle of just the most crazy amounts of shit just to see how disgustingly deformed I could get. Because I reckon I think I have the potential to be an absolute monster. Like part of me is tempted, but no, I think
even when you get into like your 40s and whatnot, though, it's like if you end up having like you don't need to, but I mean, if your test levels were actually like clinically low to a point that was concerning, like cardiovascular health is going to be impacted by low T, neurological health, motivation, like tons of things are impacted by low T to a point that it almost is arguably healthier to be on testosterone replacement at a certain point, not right now, obviously not for you right now. I'm just saying in the future, if that's something you want to facilitate, like obviously, you know, it could be healthy even.
Yeah. I'd be intrigued because like I said, if it's, I can probably go and find the numbers. Like I did it twice, and you like log into a thing, and it has like it tested for like, I forget now. There was maybe 4 or 5 different metrics, and there were different like testosterone, like something binding, something. There was like a few things, right? Yeah. And my understanding was that like one of those determined how efficient your body was at like using the testosterone. So you could feasibly have lower testosterone, but your body can utilize that better, kind of thing, which maybe accounted for that.
If you had a lower sex hormone binding globulin, you would have a disproportionately higher free testosterone level, and free is like the one that's actually circulating around.
I can find those and give them to you. I definitely, it wasn't like mega low, but I remember being like, I remember the first time I did it, I was like, I had to do it in a video because I was getting paid for it by this company, but like part of me was like embarrassed about posting it because I just thought, I assumed my testosterone would be at least like above average, but it was in that kind of normal range, slightly lower.
Yeah, I'm a skeptical of like one random snapshot in time.
Yeah. It was 2, but it was 1, maybe a space like a year apart. And I think I did it in the morning, but I don't know how rigorous that like proceed. Do you know what I mean? It was like me.
Well, even if it shows that you're still low on these results, like all the other stuff in the blood test I'm gonna recommend is gonna rule out everything. So it would just say, at the end of the day, it could just be your, crazy genetics, and you only need that much test.
That's the other thing. Like I don't see my test, assuming those ones were at least close to what they were, like i.e. slightly normal but slightly lower than normal like test. That's not going to have changed. If anything, it might have gone lower, right? Because nothing's happened that would change that. If for 6 months we do these tests and my testosterone just remains in that slightly lower portion for the entire time, again, that surely is like a signal that like I don't know, like if I'm on drugs, you don't have really low test, right? While you're taking drugs, I don't know. Do you?
No, like there'd be things that would basically show that you don't have like suppression causing the low test or anything like that. It would it'd be easy to rule out like this is your natural production and like this is why, because this marker is here and this is here and blah blah.
That will be, again, I don't want to give you a word, but if you could say, look, if you give me these 20 metrics, this rules everything out. It shows you're not taking to cover stuff up. Yeah, like. I'm not taking drugs, I haven't, so I'm happy for you to look at every single metric, everything you need from like blood or urine, whatever, like, do you know what I mean? Like, mate, even if, do you know what, even if it helped, like, I would even toy with, like, where are you, Canada? Where do you live, Canada?
I'm in Canada, but my clinic is in the States.
I would toy with the idea of flying to the US or to Canada and just doing, if I came out for a few weeks, just doing a few tests, even just to give you like a baseline compared to my other scores. Like, to be honest, I'd probably, there may be a time in the future where we come away. I would toy with the idea of doing that if it made it more like legit. Like, I'm extremely serious about just people knowing this is the case, because it's fucking.
No, yeah. Part of the whatever series that we're doing here, if you end up in the States, we'll definitely do it with my clinic for sure, and then otherwise we'll be teaming up.
But do you know what as well? Yeah, like without wanting to be like, I don't want to be like over the top, but like I feel like this would be like a victory for people. Like if someone takes drugs here and they actively say they're not taking drugs and they sell training plans, like they're a disgusting scumbag, right? But I believe there are quite a few people who are perceived to be like fake natties who aren't. Like, in fact, I know some who aren't. I know some for sure who aren't, that are called fake natties, right? I would like to at least, I think people throw it around too freely. So I think it will be, when this comes out that I am natural.
Who else do you think are like definitely?
Like Mike Thurston. Mike Thurston's natural. Like, again, I don't know if he has a very different lifestyle to me, so I don't know if he's going to be able to do all this shit, but like, I know he's natural, so like, But anyway, I understand he's like an extreme example. Like, that's 1 in a billion, right, to look like that. I understand that. Like, but anyway, like, I feel like people will kind of band it around too much. And when this comes out that I am natural, and hopefully that I've always been, you can see that, right? Maybe people will be like, well, do you know what? If he can look like that and he can be natural, then maybe we should be a little bit more cautious about just calling everyone a fake natty. Because I do think it's like, I know. Maybe like some people kind of think it's almost like a bit of a joke and they don't really take it too seriously. But for me, like, I didn't used to care, but like now, like I'll get comments, people being like, oh, you know, I love your channel, I think you've got a really nice family, like I really enjoy stuff, but I really wish you'd come out and be honest about it. Like that f***ing sucks. Like the fact that people think I'm just like this horrible like liar, that obviously isn't very nice for me. So I think it shouldn't be accusing someone, especially someone like you. Obviously, people respect your opinion. So if you come out and say, I think Matt's a fake natty, like people are going to believe that. Like every single person that's accused me, realistically, has done it off the back of you, and probably more so Greg Doucette making videos on me. So like, I feel like that.
Dude, I don't think I've ever made a video on you.
I didn't think you had, but I think you did it. You did one on mic. I didn't realize, like someone sent it to me, and I think you mentioned that you thought I was on drugs, basically. Like, and look, I understand if someone says, looking at Matt, like in a snapshot, I think maybe he is. That's different to someone like, again, I don't want to, going back to Greg, he said a couple of times, adamantly, I know he's on drugs. I think he said I had like nipple surgery, like sent me pictures of my nipples, mate, and said I had nipple surgery. Like, I can't even bring myself to respond to that because it's so laughably ridiculous that I'd go to a doctor and said, oh, can you operate on my nipples? Like, can you imagine me doing that? Like, anyone that knows me and watches any of my
Assuming he
videos,
thought you might have had like gyno or something.
but like, what the fuck? Like, anyone that knows me that watches even, you know, my videos for any length of time, just my personality, it's so obviously a ridiculous thing to think and to say. Like, so it's different. One thing saying, oh, maybe I think you might be, is different to saying, I know you are, or it's obvious you are, that kind of thing, because that's a dangerous thing to say because people will respect your opinion and therefore are gonna, as a result of that, like I said, I've had, you know, I feel like people that know me, it's not a problem because they know I'm not, right? It's more the people that are on the fence or people like, yeah, younger people. So what I don't want, and this is another big motivation for me doing this, is that I don't want like, again, I used to work in a school, right? And some of the kids there would watch those videos and would think I'm on drugs. And you've got 15-year-old kids that think they have to go and take drugs to build muscle. Like, that makes me sad, the thought of like kids, teenagers, thinking they have to do drugs because they can't get in good shape without drugs, you know? Like that would be nice as well, because people could see me, like after this, they'll see me and think, right, he's in good shape, he doesn't take drugs, therefore I can train and get in good shape and not take drugs. That would be a nice, that alone for me will be a good, like, a good conclusion, you know?
No, yeah, I've been trying to coordinate something like this for a while. Like even one of the Mike Thurston videos, I literally broke down. I was like, dude, if you want to prove you're natural, like this is how you do it. And it was literally this conversation in a video and no follow-up from it.
There was that thing, you know, do you remember that, what's this, that Kino body guy? Remember there was that Natty verified thing?
Yeah.
They messaged me and were like, do you want to do it? And I was like, fucking yes, like fill your boots, like, you know, do it. But then obviously they went quiet and nothing happened. Like,
No, in their defense, I don't think they really, it was like an exciting thing, but it was more like they didn't really know how to facilitate it or even what to test for. They were talking about like
even that alone, you can see at the time, you could see who was like, yeah, do it, and you could see who went really quiet on it. I feel like that alone is a pretty good indicator. Like, I know some people, I know some people that well, from what I've heard, are on stuff that didn't come forwards there. So like, it's pretty conclusive. Like, you obviously wouldn't like put yourself forward to do that. Do you know what I mean? Because you'd like a idiot.
Yeah, no, it certainly sheds it's in your favor in that regard. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't even think you need to defend previous stuff if we get this facilitated. So I shall, after we get off the call, I'll message WNBF, I guess, or any of the, what was the other leagues that you talked to?
There's one, like, so I think the WNBF, I believe that, so it's like the Natural Bodybuilding Federation, that's like the world one, and then I got messaged by the UK strand of that. So like, I don't know, but I think it's the same Fed, but like the UK portion of that, do you know what I mean? But I think they're two separate things. But I will also ring around, because I've had to do like a kind of COVID test over the last few months, and loads of those do blood tests. So like, I'm going to speak, I'm not confident, but I reckon there's maybe a chance of, if I could pay them and do it as a series and get someone to come to my house once every however often and do the test, that is going to make it way more realistic for me to fulfill that. Like I said, I can do it every week. I can do it every few days if someone comes to my house, you know what I mean? So I'm going to try and make that happen. And maybe in between that, once a month, I go to a lab just to kind of reinforce it or whatever. But yeah, I'll speak to some of those guys and see, because like you said, for them, it's good exposure. And if I pay for it, like they don't lose anything, right? Like,
Yeah, hopefully it's yeah, if you set up like whoever you were in touch with, set up like a 3-way DM over Instagram or something, and I'll send a voice note of like everything that we just talked about summarized, and like if it's facilitated, can they do it if we pay for it, and blah blah blah.
And worst case, I'll just fly to your house and give you my blood right there, and then you can just do it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I was like, I presented the WADA is like the World Anti-Doping Association. I was talking about the Thurston video. I literally proposed the idea of a YADA, which is like the YouTube Anti-Doping Association, where we
that would be sick.
Yeah, and I was like, if COVID wasn't going on, I was thinking like that'd be a like fun series. I just like parachute in Dubai and like fucking drug test.
There'd be so many. Like I said, honestly, I think there are lots of supposed. In fact, I know there are lots of supposed fake natties who aren't fake natties, but there are obviously also some that are fake natties, and I think it would be pretty funny and pretty awkward. I think you'd probably catch a few of those people out. That would be quite funny.
For sure. Yeah, they just wouldn't submit samples for sure. That's what I think. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that wraps it up. Unless you had anything else you wanted to touch on.
That was good, man. That was good. I know. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you obviously got a lot of going on, so I appreciate you taking the time to do it, mate. That's like, it means a lot.
No, absolutely. Yeah, this is a great idea, in my opinion.
And we're done. That was intense. Jeez, mate. That was also very long. It felt quick, but like I think it was like over an hour, which is mad. I haven't edited this yet, obviously, but like I think I'm just gonna like chuck it on. I was toying with the idea of like cutting it down, but I feel like if you want to watch this, you're probably gonna want to see all of it, and there probably isn't that much I can shave off. So, I mean, you'll know because presumably you've already watched it by this point. Apologies if it's like really long and boring, but I think I'm just gonna put the entire video on because like, I don't know, if you want to see it, you want to see it, you know. But that's it, we're done. I'm very excited. Like I said, I'm excited to prove a lot of people wrong and to make this happen. So that's it.